Thankfully, the preseason's done. It's time to get down to the nitty-gritty, if you will. It's time to talk about the 2012 NFL season. I'm going to give a preview on this channel of each of the 8 divisions between the AFC and the NFC and let you know kind of what I'm looking forward to, what I expect from some of the different teams, and maybe a few surprises along the way. I'm going to go ahead and kick off this preview bonanza, if you will, by taking a look at the NFC East. I'll start my look at the NFC East with the team that brought up the rear in the division last year, the Washington Redskins. A newsflash, Rex Grossman is not an NFL starting quarterback. Make no mistake about it. And the Redskins found that out in 2011 as they finished 6-10. And they were the worst type of team you could be in the NFL, just mediocre. Not so terrible that, you know, you're totally starting over and not working towards a playoff spot or not a playoff team. Just right there, 6-10. And they knew as an organization going into the offseason that they had to address the quarterback position. It was time for the Washington Redskins to find a new face of the franchise, to start over and find an identity. And that's exactly what they did. They traded up 4 spots in the draft and even gave up 2 future first-round picks to get Robert Griffin III, the Heisman Trophy-winning quarterback out of Baylor. And make no mistake about it, we could talk about everything else with this team, but it ultimately is all about RG3 in 2012. If you do want to look at the offensive side of the ball, they brought in Pierre Garçon to pair with Santana Moss and tight end Fred Davis. So you would hope RG3 has a couple of weapons on the perimeter to work with. In the backfield, again, as Mike Shanahan is notorious for, it looks like you're going to get a big running back by committee. Any number of guys could potentially be the ball hawk from one week to the next, whether it be Evan Royster or Roy Helu or Tim Hightower. If the Redskins want to establish an offensive identity and protect RG3, it probably is going to benefit them at some point in time early on in the season to figure out who that bell cow running back is going to be and to stick with him. On the defensive side of the ball, the Redskins run a 3-4. They've got a couple of nice outside rush backers in Ryan Kerrigan, last year's first-round pick, and first-round pick from a few years ago, Brian Arakpo, who's a complete stud. When you look at that defense, it's going to be very important for them to protect RG3 at times. He's a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. And when he does, he needs to have confidence in that defense having his back and protecting him and minimize the damage that would come from those rookie mistakes, allowing RG3 to go out and be that playmaker that that organization so desperately needs. The game I'm looking forward to the most for the Redskins this year is Week 9 against the Carolina Panthers. It'll be a great point midway through the season to figure out where RG3 is in his development and how he stacks up against last year's #1 overall pick and Rookie of the Year, Cam Newton of the Carolina Panthers. I can't wait to watch that game. My prediction for 2012 for the Redskins, if they go 6-10, that seems to be likely. But if they go 6-10 and RG3 starts to establish that he has it and he's going to be the man and he will be a franchise quarterback, then things will really start to look up in the nation's capital for the Redskins. If RG3 scuffles or if he gets hurt, it could be a long year in Washington and Mike Shanahan's head could be on the chopping block. Fear not, though, Redskins fans. You could always turn to Rex Grossman. What was supposed to be a dream season for the Philadelphia Eagles in 2011 turned into a nightmare as the self-professed by good old Vince Young Dream Team finished 8-8 and out of the playoff picture in the NFC. Sure, they had a lot of injuries, etc., but it was just not a good year for the Philadelphia Eagles. And going into 2012, I wasn't sure if I was ever going to say this or not. I think there's some pressure on Andy Reid. He's going to start feeling some heat, in particular if this team stumbles out of the gate and gets off to a slow start. When you look at this team offensively, a lot of it's going to come down to if Michael Vick can perform at a level similar to his 2010 comeback campaign, if he's going to be able to stay healthy. He's still got some weapons on offense surrounding him. Make no mistake about it, with Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin and a great all-around running back in LaShawn McCoy in the backfield. But I really think the key thing for the Philadelphia Eagles is the offensive line. It's often said that games are won and lost in the trenches, and the Eagles over the years have had problems. They've been notorious for struggling in goal line and short yardage situations and beating teams at the point of attack on offense and out-physicaling people. And when you look at this offensive line, there are some questions there. And it's going to be very important for that offensive line to step up to protect Michael Vick and be able to open some holes in the running game, especially in those tightened spaces and goal line and short yardage situations if this team has playoff hopes for this year. On the defensive side of the ball, they made some additions that I really like. Drafting Fletcher Cox, who I think will be an absolute stud in the middle. Yes, you could say they drafted yet another defensive tackle. That they did. But I really like Fletcher Cox. And then maybe they finally address their gaping void that they've had for years at middle linebacker by trading for Houston Texans middle linebacker D'Amico Ryans. And I think he will help bring some stability and some leadership to the heart of that defense. And when I look at the Eagles, a couple of key games to me, again, I think it's all about the early part of the season for the Eagles. They've got a game week 2 against Baltimore and week 4 against the Giants. And I really think it's important for this Eagles team to start off through the first 4 weeks going 3-1. If they do, they have to start feeling good about their chances the rest of the season. And if they don't, boy, oh boy, is the temperature going to rise on the Eagles. And in particular, the temperature is going to catch fire on the seat of Andy Reid, if you will. He's going to be on the hot seat in a hurry if this team stumbles out of the gate. My prediction for the Philadelphia Eagles, I think they end up going 9-7. They've made some improvements on defense, but I don't think they've made a ton of improvements overall. And I think their offensive line is very shaky to me at best. So this will be a team that probably frustrates their fans by losing some games that they shouldn't and pleasing their fans by winning some games maybe that they shouldn't. But I'm just not sure if this team is quite as good as the Cowboys or the Giants in that division. But I guess time will tell. The Dallas Cowboys, just like the Philadelphia Eagles, had themselves a very disappointing 2011 season, finishing 8-8 and out of the playoffs in the NFC. And, I've sat here on numerous occasions in the past and talked about Tony Romo and the fact that I'm not sure if he's quite got it to take a team to that next level. But at some point in time, you have to look to the top, and you have to look at the leadership of that organization, and you have to start calling that leadership into question. By that, I mean one man in particular, and that is Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. You've got that shrine, that mecca of a new corporate stadium, just awesomely big. And you've got an owner with a huge ego that has a desire to win, but they haven't done so lately. And at some point in time, I think the heat needs to shift off of just Tony Romo and go to the man calling the shots ultimately. And make no mistake about it, when it's the Dallas Cowboys, as far as that organization and that ball club is concerned, it's not the head coach, it's not anybody else in that front office that calls the shots. There's one HNIC, and it's Jerry Jones. When you look at this team on offense, you still have Romo. You have some nice weapons on the outside with Miles Austin and Des Bryant if he can get his head out of his ass, and Jason Witten, who you'll assume will come back all right from the spleen injury. When you look at the backfield, though, I think the biggest key is going to be DeMarco Murray. Can he establish himself as an every-down running back in the NFL, and can he be a 1,400-yard ball carrier that the Dallas Cowboys have lacked since really the days of Emmitt Smith, and really provide them with a dual-threat offense that could put up a lot of points and control the clock at the same time. When you look on the defensive side of the ball, it should be no surprise. The Cowboys sucked in the secondary. They've sucked in the secondary for a couple of years. Gone is Terrence Newman. In is Brandon Carr with the huge contract. And, of course, the Cowboys also made a big move by trading up to the 6th overall pick in the draft to take corner Morris Claiborne from LSU. So they're hoping that those additions right there will help bolster that secondary. On defense, it still ultimately, to me, begins and ends with Jay Ratliff and, in particular, DeMarcus Ware in that 3-4 defense. Those are the two guys, the linchpins, the bedrocks of that defense that really make that defense go. And DeMarcus Ware had a monster season last year. I wonder if Cowboy fans still wish they'd have drafted Sean Merriman instead. When I look at this team, they've got a couple of big early matchups as well that I think are going to determine early on how the Cowboy season is going to go. Week 4 against my Chicago Bears, right before their bye week. If they beat the Bears and, let's say, go into their bye week 3-1, the Cowboys have got to be feeling good about themselves. And then week 6, coming out of that bye week, they play Baltimore, another stiff test for the Cowboys team. So when I look at this team in 2012, I think DeMarco Murray will have about 1,100 or 1,200 yards and establish himself as at least a solid every-down running back. I think Romo will have some phenomenal games where he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and then he'll have other games where you just look at him and you go, what the hell? The key for Romo is going to be minimizing his mistakes in big moments and big situations. On defense, I think their secondary will be improved a little bit, and it always helps when you have DeMarcus Ware and Anthony Spencer rushing the passer on the outside. I think the Cowboys will end up finishing about 10-6, finishing second in that division, and probably sniffing around a wild card berth in the NFC. The New York Giants did it again. They won the Super Bowl. And they proved once again that you could have an okay regular season, but be a team that's built for success in the playoffs, get to the playoffs, and cause all types of matchup problems and troubles for opposing teams. And that's exactly what they did. Giants only finished 9-7 in the NFC East. Yeah, they won the division, but 9-7 is not exactly what they did in the playoffs, especially what they did to Green Bay in the divisional round. They go to San Francisco and beat the 49ers, and then they beat the Patriots again in the Super Bowl again. They have a great pass rush. They have some weapons on offense, and they have a quarterback in Eli Manning who plays much better in big-time situations than his brother Peyton does. You look in 2012, the last time the Giants won the Super Bowl, the 2007 season, they came back the next year and went 12-4, and then eventually bowed out to the Eagles in the divisional round of the playoffs. So expectations would be, with Tom Coughlin leading the team, that there wouldn't be a big letdown from being Super Bowl champions. I expect the Giants to do well again this year. When you look at them on offense, yes, they've lost Mario Manningham, but Victor Cruz steps into his spot, and I don't think they'll be losing a lot in the passing game. They added first-round running back David Wilson from Virginia Tech, and while I'm not the biggest fan of Virginia Tech running backs, in the preseason, David Wilson looked very damn good, almost like he should be the starting running back on this football team. When you look at this Giants team on defense, it ultimately begins with the front four. All the matchup troubles that guys like Tuck and Umenyiora and especially Jason Pierre-Paul cause, their ability with that front four to generate consistent pass rush and to get into opponents' backfield oftentimes is the difference, especially when they get to the playoffs. When I look at this Giants team, there's a couple of big matchups, and they have a tough schedule. It tends to happen when you win a division and you win the Super Bowl. Week 6, they play the 49ers, a great rematch from last year's NFC Championship game. And then Week 12, they play the Green Bay Packers, the team that they absolutely, totally dismantled in the divisional round of the playoffs last year. When I look at the Giants, I think this is a team that, didn't lose a ton, added some nice pieces, in particular David Wilson potentially, and this looks like a team that should once again be the cream of the crop in the NFC East. I think finish somewhere around 11-5 or so, because they do have a very tough schedule. And once again, once they get there, if they get there to the playoffs, will cause all types of matchup troubles for teams because of their ability to stretch people out on offense, have a quarterback who makes good decisions at the right time, and with a front four that just generates all types of troubles in the passing game. So the Giants, I think they're the best team in that division again this year, 11-5, and will probably make another run in the playoffs. Let me know what you expect out of the NFC East this year. Up next, I will take a look at the NFC South. I am the Schleg Daddy, and I'll see you later.